So thank you everyone for joining us. I have here Mauricio, whom a lot of you know, and David Sandberg from Google ITA. So we're really excited to have two of key leaders in the travel industry. Mauricio, you guys know, Princeton, Berkeley, came from Booz Allen, did some international marketing at Charles Schwab, founded eDreams in 2000, and now big job at OdigeO CMO with very large brands, so really exciting. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And David was also Princeton, went to MBA at Columbia, right? No, law at Columbia, but been with ITA since 1997. So very exciting to have you both here.
Okay.
So let's get started with just, some questions. So Mauricio, I hear you're the man, large brands, what is it, the 12 million customers, 28 countries, 14 call centers. What are you thinking about 2013? What are your areas of focus with that many assets to manage?
Well, what I'm thinking about is that if my daughter, who's 10 years old, knew, she's a very big Barca fan, the biggest in the world. And if you don't know Barca, it's a team that is 11 points ahead of Real Madrid. And who plays with 11 homegrown players.
Should we do the rest of the interview down there?
And so that's what I'm thinking of. What she would do if she saw me here, number one. And then another thing that I'm thinking is I'm very thankful for the gloves that Google is giving all of us.
I got no gloves.
It seems like times are changing, because I remember when Google used to give phones and things like that. So I think it's a sign that there's some sort of crisis around in the world when Google gives gloves, but thank you very much. So what was your question? Sorry?
As CMO, what are you planning on doing in 2013, given all these trends you heard earlier, so forth?
All right, so 2013, I think that if we see travel a little bit more the globally in terms of the different phases of travel, it's a very big market, and it's a market that is bigger than what we normally think when we're talking about online travel, right? Because travel is around like a $3.4 billion market, which is more or less 40% is what we normally associate with online travel, which is the flight booking, accommodation, car. That's more or less like 40% of this market, and then 60% is the in-destination travel expenditures. So and then when you think about the value today in terms of the most valuable companies competing in this marketplace, is the most valuable companies are the ones who are competing in the booking phase. That's where you have Booking.com, you have Priceline, you have Expedia, you have OdigeO. So that's where a lot of the expenditure is concentrated, and then there's a lot more spend in destination. So local transportation, local activities, food, things of that nature. But that the players competing there are a lot more fragmented, so like the largest companies there are pretty small in nature compared to the big ones. So I think that there will be a transition of competing more in destination in all of the phases that encompass the travel experience. And going forward, so sorry, a small summary. So when today people spend a little bit of money in I think what you were calling it, discovery or something like that, in the discovery phase. I think tomorrow there won't be that much money there either, because people make their mind through friends and family, and when they're discovering things, they're thinking more with their right brain and not that much in transactional nature. But I think that the planning, booking, and shopping phases, which today are very defined, will kind of blur more in the social kind of travel. And then, the last piece, so the destination will be a very key component. So.
Great.
And then we can talk about mobile.
Sure. Well, that's great. We're going to be here all day. No, I'm just kidding. So, given that we have David here, just want to, you talked a bit about discovery and in market. So I think to me, when I was doing research for this presentation, really innovation has really come to mind about how do we do that. And I want to ask the same question to you both, first at David, and then to you, Mauricio, if you can answer that. From an ITA standpoint, how are you guys thinking about innovation and product and really helping the travel ecosystem to be more and more efficient for the consumers overall, no matter whomever you're working with? Sure. So how do you guys think about innovation? And then Mauricio, David first, and then.
Sure. Well, I'm not on the product side. I'm on the business side. But I think one of the really key things about Google's acquisition of ITA is we came at this problem as two companies from two very different perspectives. Culturally, Google and ITA were very similar companies, both very engineering driven, both very technical, but ITA was focused on supplying technology to businesses. Our customers are airlines, OTAs, meta searchers, intermediaries. Google is completely focused on consumers and end users. And putting the two teams together has, I think, enabled both of us to think a little bit differently, enabled Google to look at the experience of helping people find travel with more of an understanding of what the industry needs, the businesses, the suppliers need in order to get their message across and deliver something that they find useful. And ITA has learned a lot more about thinking about end users in terms of how you think about technology, whereas before our customers were marketing and distribution people at airlines and at OTAs. Now our joint customers are both the suppliers and the consumers. And in terms of the ecosystem, what we've tried to do is do the right thing for both of us, for both of those constituencies, to come up with solutions that work for our partners that are suppliers, whether they're airlines. I don't work in hotels, but hotels, OTAs, intermediaries, or for the people that are ultimately using our product to do business with those people, which are Google's users, end users, people who are on their phones, people who are on their tablets, people who are on the internet.
Sure. Before David answers, Mauricio, sorry, I'm getting these two mixed up. They look alike,
people
right?
confuse us all the time.
So we'll take questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, just get ready. So Mauricio, how do you innovate and think about whatever areas within your business?
I think it's looking at where the consumer is going, right? So when you think of in our business, which is the online travel agency business, OTA, which is the OTA's a consumer in the OTA essentially they book a flight or a hotel or a car rental on their PC. That's more or less the use case. There's going to be more a shift to the mobile travel agency, which the first time I heard that was precisely through Diego Saez-Gil, who's the founder of We Hostels, that you mentioned him. So moving to a mobile travel agency type of model, and then which the mobile travel agency, essentially, you book your products through your mobile device, and then moving to what a consumer needs more, which is a mobile travel companion. No? So giving them what they need when they need it, and what product they need at a very contextualized type of moment. So I think that shift requires a lot of innovation, but it also is what the consumer is asking for today. Like the consumer today, whenever they make an online travel decision, they still search and look at many different sites. I mean, I think a statistic I read is that I think 20% of travelers have to look at more than, I think, 15 sites, and 50% at more than 15 sites, and then 20% at more than 20 sites, which is just kind of crazy. It's something is broken there. So what the consumer needs, and as you mentioned also, is somebody to kind of guide them through the whole journey, and that's where I think the concept of mobile travel companion from very large and established players, which could include Google, could include Apple, could include some of the large players today, like OdigeO, like Expedia. They will play a major role there in that shift.
Any questions, David, from the audience or so far? No? No? One question over there.
Hello, this question is for Mauricio. First of all, we're all talking about customer comfort. So you're saying maybe with other companies like Google and Apple joining the different companies, but how about just between your own companies? So let's say eDreams has more of a link with TripAdvisor. So you're looking for a hotel or a flight, and that directly has comments from TripAdvisor and so on with other sites. Maybe that could help. And also I wanted to point out, I find it interesting that you learn about football from your 10-year-old daughter.
Kids are very smart, much smarter than us, I think. I think you're right. I mean, there's not a single company can do everything right. So who can compete with Google in search? Very few. I mean, who can compete with there's a lot of new startups just thinking and breathing certain kind of very niche market activities, which we will never do. So a key component in doing things right and establishing this mobile travel companion will be to structure strategic relationships with many different companies ranging from the biggest ones to the smallest startups. So I agree that that's a key component. I think also a key component in the marketing war, it has been fought a lot on the search side. I believe that we're going to be moving more as the consumer moves more mobile, and as Google experiences more on the Google travel, we're going to be moving more to being able to manage big data. That's, I think, where the marketing battles will happen, because being able to manage big data is precisely being able to give the traveler what they need at the right time. So I think that's going to be also a key component in the future.
Thank you for the question and for the answer. David, I guess everybody in the audience is thinking about this. Google Flight Search, what is it really aiming to do? And do you think it can really coexist with OTAs and suppliers? And do we have plans on becoming an OTA? Right, good question, right?
Oh, look at the time. No.
Your flight's not till 4:30, so.
No, I think that, answer the questions one at a time. I think that Mauricio is completely correct, is that even Google, being Google, doesn't think that you can do everything. there's just too many things that there are too many other people doing well to think that, okay, we're going to go into all these things that we're not doing now, do them better than everyone else, and get all the business. I think the idea of flight search is, let's leverage something that we do very well. We ITA know a lot about airline search. Combine that with something that Google does very well, and create something that makes one part of the experience a little bit easier. There's a lot of, in terms of the place of that in the ecosystem, I think that it would be silly to say, okay, this is now going to become the only way anyone's ever going to buy travel again. There are too many, both in terms of what consumers like to do, in terms of what suppliers want to do with their distribution, that the only way flight search is going to be successful is if it stays part of a larger ecosystem of suppliers, intermediaries, and consumers, and maybe facilitates one part of that interaction where there's certain things, if you're looking for, we're going to be able to help you find them better. In terms of OTAs, I think Google is the big question when Google first announced it was buying ITA already 2.5 years ago was, do you want to go into the booking business? And Google's answer for 2.5 years has been, we have no plans to go in the booking business. We have, these guys are very big customers of Google. Most of the big OTAs are big customers of Google. We think we coexist really well in this world, and we don't want to change that relationship with those partners. Booking is something that's not our core expertise. It's not, there's a big customer service element to Google, to booking, that Google's not really used to doing. So certainly, if a decision were ever made about something like that, it would be made by someone who makes a lot more money than I do. But Google's position, I think, has always been, since anyone started talking about this with the announcement of the ITA acquisition, that it's not a business that Google's interested in going into.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the audience? Oh, a few questions over there.
Thank you very much. My name is Álvaro Carrillo from ITH, Instituto Tecnológico Hotelero. Just the same question about Google Hotel Finder. If you just only want to be a part of the ecosystem with Google Flight Search, what about Hotel Finder? And are you thinking about car rental? Because being part of the ecosystem, but you are becoming part of the ecosystem, you are going to become the whole ecosystem. And just for Google, and what do you think from the OTA point of view? Just having, I don't know if it's in front or just aside Google as a competitor.
Well, let me just answer that. I think that we've been working with Google for a long time, and we continue to work with them. We'll see in what capacity, the nature of that changes. But also my question more would be from a consumer perspective. I mean, today the reality is that 50% of consumers buy their flights with an OTA, 50% with a flight, with a supplier direct. And when I go to Google Flights today, Google is showing predominantly or pretty much only flight providers, which that does not reflect what consumers are searching or the consumer habits. So that's more a question on what are the internal debates at Google to kind of marry the concept of, what Google is there for is to search the right thing for the user, but today that user that chooses an OTA is not finding it in Google Flights. So there's some sort of a confusion there, I think, from the consumer perspective.
Yeah. I think that if you look at flight search over the roughly year since it was first launched, both for technical reasons and for reasons of relationships with suppliers, it started off having no links to OTAs. We've been slowly adding links to OTAs in different markets with different partners. I think that you'll see as we start to expand to markets outside the United States, the picture with OTAs will be different than what we see in the US and Canada product. I think our view is, and you and I have talked about this, and I think Google's view overall is the consumer is best served by choice, by having the options. And certainly where our vision for the product is that we give consumers as many options to do things the way that they want to as possible, rather than force them into particular ways of doing things. It's something we're working on. It's getting better, and I think it'll continue to improve as we roll out into additional markets beyond the US, and also in the US we're adding more and more.
And I think we have a product roundtable later on, right? So
One question for you, Izabela.
For me.
Because you're
I'm
asking
the
too many
moderator. You
questions.
can ask me questions.
How was, because Google's acquisition of Frommer's and Zagat could be seen also as kind of ammunition to fight the TripAdvisor on that side. So how was you have TripAdvisor as your client? How was that conversation with TripAdvisor after those couple of acquisitions?
It wasn't. No, and actually that's a good question. David and I were having dinner yesterday at 1 o'clock in the morning, talking about acquisitions and integration. And I think I'm not in the acquisition team, but I think from a travel standpoint, Google we never look at, who we can take out tomorrow. Is it this player or that player? It's really looking kind of like what David mentioned about looking at how consumers are searching for information. And we always go back to the core mission of the company, and it's true. And so TripAdvisor is a very big client of ours. My goal is to work with them to grow their business, and we haven't done anything. The acquisition with Frommer's and even with Zagat, I include Zagat in there as well. Until we see future plans, which I'm not, I don't know what those are. Then we can kind of cross those bridges when we get there. But my goal with TripAdvisor is just to continue to drive bookings and find innovation for them within the company.
And another implication that I have seen is that the organic searches are pretty much disappearing from at least from travel. When you look for flights from New York to Las Vegas, there's no organic searches because there's a lot of space given to universal search. And yesterday I was reading an article on T News talking about the death of SEO. And so, like, how do you see the death?
You believe T News?
I believe what I see. When I search flights from Las Vegas to New York, I don't see any organic searches. So,
yeah, I think we do a lot of testing. And, to David's point, again, like trying to give the consumer what they're looking for, facilitating those searches. And, I mean, look, SEO is a big part of Google. We have a lot of respect for our users. That's who we are. We are who we are because of our users. So, and our partners as well. So we don't have any intention of killing the relationship with our customers or not treating our users well. It's how we can find a happy medium of getting our partners to use our users. So I have a question for you now, if you let me. I didn't know he was going to be this feisty. So Priceline and Kayak acquisition, what do you think about it? How do you take international competition, right? We heard it at Focusrite. Everybody wants to increase internationally, and that means Latin America, EMEA, APAC. How do you tackle international competition? Is there a difference between domestic, international?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a surprise for everybody because the acquisition was closed after a few months, 3 or 4 months after Kayak had gone public. So that was a surprising move. In terms of competition, it also seems that Kayak this year will be focusing very much on the European continent. I mean, after all, Europe today is I think this year will have a bigger kind of travel market than the United States, and so it's the biggest region in the world in online travel. So it's normal also that they focus more on in here, and we'll see where it leads. I mean, I think that today they're not. Kayak is a strong brand in few countries, and you know they're going to be investing a lot of money in trying to build a brand, which I think is it's a good thing. I mean, in the future we were talking about mobile and big data. Brand will take also a big component because it will be very important to build a very strong human-like relationship with consumers to make sure that your brand really stands for something that people can touch, that people can relate to, even if they're in disagreement with what your brand stands for, but at least, you know, have a more human-like relationship with brands. So I do see that in competing internationally, it poses a challenge also of really defining what your brand stands for. The way we have competed internationally, because we have eDreams, Go Voyage, Oporo, we have been able to have a very strong kind of global outlook, but having a very local know-how and competition, which is, I think, a good formula to be successful. To be very local in our biggest markets, but having a big company behind. And our biggest market is in Europe. Our size today is larger than the entire Latin America and Asia OTA market. So, but also that's where the growth is. So we are present in 38 countries, but our biggest core markets are in Asia. So.
Great. One last question from the audience before we wrap up.
Good morning. My name is Íñigo Valenzuela. First of all, congratulations for the meeting and for the place. Mauricio, there's a shop downstairs. Perhaps you can find something for your daughter. The question is, it's just a feeling. The marriage between ITA and Google, for me it's a mix between a GDS, an OTA, and an advertising reseller. It's something quite. It's a new model. It's true that you're not becoming an OTA, but you're becoming a little bit of an OTA, and you're becoming a little bit of a GDS, and also the classical business coming from business model from Google. What do you think about it? This is a question for any of you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
One of the things that ITA has done over the last few years is built an airline reservation system. So certainly ITA, before Google and after, has looked at other parts of the airline technology picture besides search, which is sort of the very surface from the consumer. I think that I don't think there are that many airline people here, but Antonio and I were talking from United, and I were talking last night. There's certainly, GDS is not a business that anyone who is in an airline thinks is the way it should be. There's always been I think a very interesting relationship between airlines and GDSs, and there's certainly ways in which that part of the distribution chain could be improved. Like OTA, ITA hasn't said we're going in the GDS business. I think if you look down the road, it might be something that we thought we could do more efficiently than the current people are doing it. it's very, in my view, that's very different from the OTA business, which is a very customer service focused business. But ITA's goal was, there's a lot of broken technology in the airline business. We should be able to fix some of it. And one of the things I was telling someone last night, my father worked for TWA when I grew up, and he was a computer programmer. And he started working for TWA about 50 years ago, and he worked on the reservation system. That reservation system still runs a bunch of airlines. And my father's not alive anymore, neither is any of the people that he worked with, you know, on that system. And yet those are still that's still the technology that's powering a lot of the airline industry. We would love to fix that. We're trying to do that. But as I say, all this stuff happens within an ecosystem of players, and everyone does different things well. And in terms of Priceline Kayak, I see Javier sitting over there, and we probably have to finish. But for me, one of the things that was so interesting about the Priceline Kayak acquisition is those are two very different places in the system. These guys did one thing well, these guys did another thing well. They both want to try to broaden their bases, and neither one was foolish enough to think they could do it well themselves. Kayak didn't want to get in the OTA business, Priceline didn't want to get in the meta-search business, but they can put those businesses together and each focus on what they're good at. I think there's a lot of things out there in distribution that are broken, and we could all work at fixing them, and airline distribution is still not going to be ideal 5 years from now.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, audience, for the questions. Hope it was productive for you. Thank you.